Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. We're going to pick up an important topic of something that just came out SecDev Monday on a full report that went out to all branches of the military regarding changes of identifying combat arms, military occupational specialties from those that aren't, and what the physical requirements are going to be based on that. Now, years ago, the Army Reserve did this with the National Guard in order to break up combat arms from combat support and combat services support. But for some reason, the Army, I think, or some of the branches of the military came forward and said they're struggling with how to identify the different MOSs of what would be classified. And I think that's because it gets a bit gray at times, and we can talk about that during the episode. But we want to address each of those points that were within that document, that now they have 6 months, I think it is, or I'm sorry, 60 days. Is it 6 months?
I think it's 6 months. 6 months from when they figure out what they're going to do. And each service.
Yeah. 60 days to create a plan,
Yep.
6 months to implement against it.
There you go. That's what it is. I knew it was 60 days. It was in there. Thanks for that. So we're joined in studio with Blaine and Brandon, who you guys have picked up on a previous episode not too long ago that we did with them. And then on the phone, we actually have a active member on active duty that helps as one of many people manage Task Force 383 or TF 383 on Instagram. If you go and follow that page, it's a good mentoring page that occasionally puts out some good information as well as just good mentoring overall. And their tagline I love, which is be an asset, not a liability. So welcome to the phone, brother.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Whoever you are.
Mr. Mystery Man. All right.
So cool.
So I don't have the document in front of me because we're using the phone for the Bluetooth. But do you happen to have the document?
I do.
What I sent you? Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll start off with reading some of the beginnings of that, of what was clearly defined within the document.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk amongst yourselves while I pull this up off of airplane mode.
Well, I think we read through it earlier today, and I think the gist of it, and you outlined a lot of it, was this idea that we need to understand the roles people are playing within the military across all branches of service, and then we want to have physical fitness standards that make sure that they align with their roles and responsibilities. So there was a mandate basically put out saying, look at all the military occupational specialties within your branch, identify which of those are combat arms, which of those are not, and then come up with a plan to establish physical fitness standards in accordance with the role. That is, it feels pretty straightforward.
It does.
Yeah.
I think that's what the AFCT or ACFT or whatever
ACFT.
was supposed to do initially.
Yeah, that was my first blush. I was like, didn't the Army just do this? Like,
That's kind of what I took from it as well initially. I think the disaggregation of three categories, it was combat arms, special operations, and then specialty jobs, which it used a couple of the examples of diver or explosive ordnance disposal, that there ought be certain delineation of standards in terms of physical fitness that lead to readiness that ultimately lead to lethality, which seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The other thing was that there shouldn't be any differences specifically for those MOSs that are considered in the higher categories like special operations or combat arms and stuff like that. Any differences between the sexes. It should be one standard, period.
Yeah. Well, let me go over so the audience gets an idea of what we're talking about if you haven't seen this. So it's a memorandum from SecDef for the secretaries of the military departments, and the subject line is combat arms standards. I won't read all of it, but I will get into the grouping. The overarching theme is combat arms versus non-combat arms occupations. And so number one, they outline ground combat occupations. So standards for ground combat occupations should emphasize the ability to carry heavy loads, endure prolonged physical exertion, and perform effectively in austere, hostile environments. Service members in these roles must exhibit speed, strength, agility, and endurance to navigate the demands of combat situations.
So let's talk about that for a moment. And, our TF 383 guy, you can jump in at any time frame, but just talking about the combat arms part of it, is it going to be challenging to identify that? Because for so long, it used to be, as I recall, infantry, armor, artillery, and combat engineers, I think, were the only ones that were classified as combat arms. Do you guys disagree?
Air defense maybe as well.
Oh, that's right. Maybe the 88 guys.
Which I'm not sure if that's even a separate branch anymore.
Yeah.
I'm out of the loop.
True. I don't know either.
I don't
Can't
either.
speak intelligently.
Yeah.
Do you know 383?
Not tracking on that one. I know the CAV was grouped in that as well for combat arms applications.
Yep. So if that's the case, and that we've just simplified it really well. It's just those MOSs that are either forward in the operation, could be very forward in the operation, and usually are forward in the operating plan.
Sure.
Makes sense. Should be pretty clean and cut. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
the assumption would be that, and we talked about implied tasks earlier. What's the rubric that's going to break down what's considered combat, what isn't considered combat? Do we go back to, well, this is the way it always was? So do we still incorporate, armor, infantry, combat engineers, so on and so forth? Or is there going to be something else that comes out that helps you delineate what combat arms is and what it is not? So I'm interested to see if he's leaving that in the hands of the actual, secretaries of the Army and Navy and all those to figure that out, or if that's already been established and then now they have to work forward from that.
I think for like branches like the Navy, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, it might be easier because it might just be SEALs and perhaps other NSW guys or CBs maybe, and that might be, and it may not even be CBs, but I mean they may be able to like narrow it down, not combat arms, because they don't really have any combat arms that may be more soft, but maybe they'll consider CBs or something. I don't know. It'll be really interesting.
Big chunk of the Marine Corps, I would imagine.
Right, right. Air Force wise, I could see, TAC P,
Pararescue,
combat
PJs,
controllers.
combat controllers, yeah.
I mean, and even in his memorandum, he's calling it ground combat occupations. So is that something that, I mean, a name is everything, right?
I think it's up to the services from what I'm reading. It's saying like, hey, you figure this out and come back and let us know which are on this side of the line and which are on that side of the line. And you mentioned this before we started recording, but I think it can get a little gray. Some of it's pretty straightforward, but if you were driving around Baghdad in 2004, like we were, I mean, it could be pretty hard to tell who's combat and who's not combat arms when every single person is driving the same roads, and many of us were doing the same thing. So, I think in 1997, it probably looked pretty straightforward. I think by 2003 or 4, it was a little murkier, and it's been 20 years since then. So I don't know how they'll do it.
Well, to your point, if I scroll back up into the memorandum and would have read it properly, it says the military department's plans must clearly define combat arms occupations and non-combat arms occupations. Additionally, for certain combat arms roles, it is essential to identify which positions require heightened entry level and sustained physical fitness. These roles, which are critical to our military's mission success, demand exceptional physical capabilities, and the standard for them must reflect that rigor. Therefore, plans must address, and then it goes into those 3 different categories. I mean, it's still
gray to me.
It is,
I'm
but
sorry.
it's giving it up to the departments to figure that out, right? And I believe that that's going to be the biggest discussion. The PT and what we need to be doing, and we transitioned from a 3-event PT test to functional training and all this stuff. I think that just goes with education and physiology and what we determine what's best for our bodies, and that includes nutrition and sleep, and we can talk about all that, but would you consider trying to figure out what ground combat occupations are as to be subjective, or do you think there's a clear delineation? And the reason, and we're all looking at each other for
That's tough. I mean,
right? So I think that's kind of subjective.
I would be out of my depth to get into what the Air Force or the Navy, for examples, might suggest are ground combat operations troops or functional areas. Candidly, you touched on a couple aspects that I have already been thinking about, which the first is, I can't answer this question, but the question is, what kind of resourcing are you going to do to equip this new delineation, if it is new in the first place? Because the other thing that I initially think about, and remember, I spent just shy of a decade in the Ranger Regiment, so all day, every day, it was this.
Yeah.
And so what I can't speak to, but I'm sure that our teammate from 383 could maybe add a little bit of color to, is I could tell you what it looked like from 97 to 04, for example. I could tell you pre-GWAT, I could tell you GWAT. What I couldn't really get a grasp of, but it's almost an implied, is that there has been some kind of a deficit that has been identified by which this memorandum is addressing.
That's the question. So what's the problem we're trying to solve?
Exactly. That's the first thing that Blaine and I were thinking, because, we've been out of the game for 16 years, but you go back to first principles thinking, is what is the problem that we're trying to solve for? And so, I mean, if you our brother on the phone here from 383, I would love to hear what your perception is of the problem that we are trying to solve for. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know within the last couple of years, especially during like the COVID phase and everything like that, and the implementation of the ACFT from the APFT, was how do we set the standard for this? What does that test look like? Why does the test look the way that it looks? Is it gender based? Is it age based? Is it MOS specific? I know the Marine Corps has a pretty great build out on like what they classify from combat focus to enabler to direct support style MOSs. Their PT plan is totally different than anything that I've ever had experience and exposure with. But the driving factor, I think, with this was, hey, we have spent so much money and so much time, and we had so many people that never took a graded actual physical fitness standardized test, and everyone's just kind of lost in the sauce. We spent millions of dollars on the H2F program. We've spent millions of dollars on coaches and on Rogue Fitness kits and on Fever Fit kits and all this other stuff. I think this is a combined effort to standardize across the military. Like, hey, these are the baselines. These are the 60%. These are what we expect, no less than within each of these categories. And then from that, hey, these certain groups, 90% is standard. Within these groups, 75% is the standard. And then within this group, 65 is the standard. There hasn't been a standardized, like, good, hard set regulatory guidance push on a lot of this stuff in a number of years. It used to be, hey, you wanted to do something cool, 90 points in each event, go do your push-up, sit-up, 2-mile run. If you didn't score 90, you're not coming over here.
Yeah.
That then changed with the ACFT. And then within the last couple of years, it was 80 points in each event would waive you from height and weight. And they tried to incentivize doing PT, and they tried to give a reason behind it. I don't know how it's going to look for the other branches, but I think from the Army, if they start breaking this down and categorizing and holding like an enforced standard, that then will ultimately impact things like promotion rates and QMP status and who's staying in and why they're staying in, and do you meet the physical readiness standards? Are you deployable? Can you deploy? Are you within the threshold of accountability of oneself to be in that leadership role kind of thing? I think that's what they're trying to get to based on some of this, but ultimately it will lead back into like his primary thing with the new warfighting guidance that SecDef published of like, training is warfighting focused. We're cutting all the silliness, all the fluff, everything else out. If it's not warfighting function and it's not in line with your job progression, you're not doing it. We're not spending the time and wasting the effort on it. This holding a PT standard will ultimately lead into the solid foundation of like, hey, to do these things, you must be able to physically do this. If you can't physically do that, you can't do that. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Yeah. I mean, and it goes right back to our discussion with Mike, about getting back to the basics, the shoot, move, communicate, medicate.
Yeah.
Right. We just need to get back to the basics. So I think, obviously you're speaking from a place of knowledge, and we appreciate that input. I think we can all agree that in the last few years, we've been building that PT plane as it flies, right? It's, hey, let's put this out. Let's get, what is it? The knee, elbow tuck thing, All right, that didn't work. Let's go ahead and go into this plank. All right, well that was a social media thing. All right, what else do we do? So we're trying to figure it out as we go, and sometimes that evolution needs to bring it all the way back to zero. And I feel like this is kind of where we're going with it. I just don't want it to become another flavor of the month.
I have issue with this only because having been around for a number of years and watched the military transition through multiple PT type tests, we haven't figured out the right way yet. And it tends to be more, and it should be aligned with the job. I think it should be more aligned with the mission set that we feel we might be going into, most certainly. So I think it should be nimble. It should be versatile. It should be probably based, like I said, on MOS. It shouldn't be then in combat arms different from male or female. I don't think anybody would disagree with any of those types of things. But what the hell is it? And that's what we've struggled with, is the what. Because what ends up happening is when we set the ACFT, then people couldn't meet those standards. And so to your point, 383, what ended up happening is they started looking at, are we going to start having to rip people out? We're going to have to then, whoa, we got a big retention problem here. We can't get people in the door. Now we're going to be booting them out. We need to stop what we're doing, stop the presses. Let's change that event to a different event. And we keep playing around with it to tweak it, but we've still not mastered the overall fitness test.
Yeah, I think it sounds like we have an implementation problem. Because if you look at what the Marine Corps has done, if you look at what the Army's done, there's been no shortage of effort put into thinking about it, coming up with an appropriate test. What we're not doing is implementing it consistently. And then when we can't meet standards, we just change the standard rather than coach up and train up to the standard. And I realize it's not that simple, but that is where the problem is, I think. It's not that we're not smart enough to figure out what physical capabilities do soldiers need to do the task. Like, that's not really that hard of work.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
We can figure this out. And I'll tell you that when the new ACFT came out a few years ago, a few friends and I, and my wife, by the way, got together in my driveway and did it. And it was not, I mean, I'm 46 years old. I've been out of the military a long time. It was fine. You can do all the stuff if you're staying in shape. And so that was my one perspective on it. I'm like an old, retired SF guy, and it's not that hard. So where are we falling short? Is it good in a t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
But what is the issue? Is it what Brandon said? Is it training? Is it equipment? It sounds like we've thrown a lot of money and time at that too. So are we getting too far downstream? Like, do we need to go way further upstream to address what the issue is? It doesn't sound to me like it's the kettlebells or the drag sleds or the knee tuck. It's something different than that.
I think it's buy-in. And this is controversial, right? I mean, we came from a place when we all joined where if they tell you to do something, you do it. I grew up in an environment where a sergeant first class was it. Like, I didn't know ranks above him or her because that was it. Sergeant first class said something and I'm done, right? Yep. That's evolved. It's changed. And, we used to joke around, and I don't even know if it was a joke, but they had said, it almost takes a sergeant major to get anything done nowadays. Not physically, but like guidance-wise and, threaten somebody's life trying to get something done. So if we bring that over to the physical fitness aspect of it, and I saw this firsthand, it's the buy-in, and not the buy-in from the soldiers, because the soldiers, they're malleable, right?
Yeah.
But the leaders, if I've got a leader that goes, man, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, we're not going to do that.
By it.
Right,
they can't
exactly.
Killed it in the water right there.
So how do we create the buy-in?
That's what 383 you posted about today. You want to touch on that?
I love
about the NCO and how that's evolved, or the officer?
Yeah, that the NCO and the officer stuff has changed so dramatically in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You look at what you had when you first joined. I mean, my initial squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant had all done initial push into Afghanistan, came home, and then did the surge into Iraq. They had more combat than I had, basically life on Earth. That has shifted and changed, and then with the shifting, change in policy and throughout the changes through the sergeant majors of the Army and what was deemed important, and tattoos make you a bad leader, or this school, if you don't have this, you're not a good leader, you're not a qualified guy. The change in that rapidly started to strip away the true power of the NCO and it rapidly became an officer's military again. Even in organizations where it's NCO driven, NCO led, NCO empowered, they modified and changed it and tweaked it and guidance and policies, and all of a sudden now it's officer driven. Not that that's a bad thing, but there are places where it's as crappy as it is to say NCO business. Like, there is a time and a place for NCOs to do NCO things, and the officers can step out, and then there's time where you have to do both together. There was so much change recently in some of these things that NCOs, especially junior NCOs, young guys that are trying to figure it out, are like, well, I can't do anything because I don't want to, ding my NCOER. I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to get removed out of this billet, or I don't want to receive reprimand for taking initiative. So the initiative drive rapidly went away. We don't see that anymore. You don't see young guys outside running dudes into the ground, doing gun drills, doing glass houses, rolling in the grass, doing combatives, beating the crap out of one another. There are places where that still exists, and like the true core of the Army and the Marine Corps, and that exists out there. It absolutely does. It'd be foolish to say that it doesn't, and that there aren't young guys that still have that fire and that drive. It's just more done almost like behind closed doors thing. Like, you have to be very protective of it, and you have to kind of watch what you're doing, because somebody says something and then it's taken out of context, or somebody that lives and dies by the book and by the black and white of the regulations. Like, you can't do that. Like, well, I can. It's this thing, but it's an amendment to that. I only read the first 3 or 4 words, and that says you can't do this. So now I'm going to crush you. The implementation piece, I don't think we have an issue with. Like you said, like, people want to do it. People want to train. People want to work out. You join the military with kind of sort of the knowledge of, like, I'm going to be expected to run and ruck and do these things and swim and jump and climb and shoot guns and blow stuff up. That's the expectation, really, regardless of whatever MOS or career field that you choose. Those are baseline expectations. No one's lying to you and be like, you'll never do any of this stuff. You'll just sit in an office and you'll be okay. But there's not as much of an enforcement of that anymore. So the senior guys that grew up doing one thing are like, well, that's dumb because it takes so long to do this thing, or it's stupid because it requires all this extra work. Like, yeah, like you're saying, how many iterations did we go through where, well, that doesn't work, we're going to move the goal line. Well, that kind of works, yeah, but not quite enough. We're going to move the goal line again. And now all of a sudden it's like, all right, we've diminished the great ability and success of this program to the point that, like, there's something I got to do once every 6 months. Okay, yeah, I'll knock it out. It's easy to pass. It's not hard to pass. You don't have to really do anything to pass it. It requires a little bit of work if you want to, score 90 and above, or max out and score 600. But the implementation of the programs, the training pieces, how many times has it changed? It went from one style of training to a different style of training, to a whole different program, to a different name, to a whole different certification requirement to teach this stuff. And then you have everyone that has their own views on, that push-up counted, that push-up didn't count. Same as you hear it all the time, oh, the grader, he didn't like my push-up. Well, maybe you weren't doing them to standard. There's a standard, that's the standard, that's what it is.
That guy got fucked at Ranger School, Frank.
Yeah.
I know that guy.
The grader fucked me.
Right in the drive-through.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait.
Right.
Have you ever seen the Pentagon Wars?
No.
The Pentagon Wars. Exactly what you guys are talking about is the Pentagon Wars. It's a movie, Kelsey Grammer, and it's the story of the Bradley fighting vehicle. And the Bradley fighting vehicle, long story long, was supposed to be this stealthy, go out there and do all these different things. And it was supposed to be flat and low key and quiet. And then it turns out to be this high profile rocket launching 25 millimeter. It's because everybody had their input. So every time they would bring it forward, a general would go, but it should probably kill tanks. And so by the end of the movie, you've got the Bradley fighting vehicle, which is this big monstrosity of a tracked vehicle. It's exactly what we're talking about, is that at inception, I believe our PT program could have been successful. Right.
Yeah.
But
not incentivized towards simplicity.
Exactly. And
no one is
incentivized
incentivized for that. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, here's my experience, and it's from a long time ago. And I wonder if there's a bit of a haves and have-nots in this regard. But when I was on a team, we did 0 days of PT that were focused on passing a standardized test. 0. In 3 years, we did PT every day, and not one single PT session was focused on, let's make sure we can max out the APFT or meet some sort of established standard. It's 2007, it's 2008, it's 2009. We're going to combat. We should be as physically fit as humanly possible. So we're going to show up at 6 a.m. every morning, and we're going to kill each other and compete and be as fit as possible. So it's running, it's rucking, it's pull-ups, it's push-ups, it's all that stuff. It's the weight room, it's deadlifts and squats. None of it had to be coached into us. None of it had to be held over our head. Zero of it was required, and yet it still happened. And I realize that's one little sliver of the military. And so like my perspective is not, broad there, but is that the problem we're facing? I mean, are people not doing PT? Are people not physically fit?
100%.
Like, is that the issue, that if we don't lay out the test, they won't train to the test?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, you got to build the standard to the lowest common denominator. And the difference between what you're describing and what a big army does is maturity. It's being mature enough to understand what the end state is, which is survivability in combat. So how does that translate into physical preparedness, right? And then if you grab the thousands of people that do conventional PT, everybody's going to have their own opinion on how to do it. And that drives people up here crazy because they want some sort of structure behind it. And then how do we make sure that people are doing that PT? Well, okay, it's got to be graded. And there's a lot of this. This is the way it's always been going on too. Right? How long have we been with the 3-event PT test? How long have we been doing height and weight with, tape me across my neck and my abdomen, right? It's because it's easy, it's cost effective, it's the way it's always been. I mean, it was a big push. Financially, it was a big push to even try to change the PT program.
I'm sure it was. I mean, I like the idea that if we're going to test people on the deadlift, the implied assumption is that they will then practice deadlifting, which is good because if we have more soldiers deadlifting, we're going to have stronger soldiers. I follow the logic.
Yeah.
But how complicated does it really need to be? I mean, could the 4 of us, 5 on the phone, knuckleheads, sit around and come up with 6 events that are general test of physical preparedness and do that? I would say we probably could.
As long as there's not a distance run involved, yeah.
Wait, you're biased.
Well, I'll sign up for that part.
Well, so read number 2, which is special operators, because I think, special operations is very important, but let's get into that.
Yeah. I'm devil's advocate. So once we read this, everybody.
Then we should, and my reasoning behind this of going to that is that if that is the higher level, if you will, then what of that should we then have within the conventional or the combat arms from the rest of the military, tiered wise?
Yeah. So number 2 is special operations forces occupations. The standards for SOF occupations must be equally rigorous, incorporating advanced swimming, climbing, parachuting, and the ability to operate in extreme environments. Sustained peak physical performance is essential to execute missions of the highest stakes across diverse and challenging terrains. So, that goes into what you're talking about. You've got a small group of people who are mature enough to understand what your next mission set is going to be. You're going to train to that mission set, plus some general stuff to keep that physical fitness up. And that's going to glean success. You're going to go in there, you're going to kick some ass, you're going to come back, wash, rinse, repeat.
Okay,
I don't disagree with that.
So my question then, 383 on active duty, do you feel soft units from what you've seen are not performing at that level?
I would say that there is not a lack of individuals who have taken initiative to do the things that they need to do. I mean, look at your average Ranger private. That dude is corn-fed. He is an animal when it comes to moving weight. You throw a 240 and a 90-pound ruck on him, and he is going to go until you say stop, and he will not quit before then. Look at your average young Green Beret. Same thing. It's a different mentality. It's a different scope. It's a different aperture that they look at things through, where it is expected that if I cannot pull my own weight, my stuff will be out in the hallway. The door code will be changed, and I will not be invited back to the steam room. I'll find myself a new job.
Right. Yeah.
So working that, like, I think the refinement piece there of what they're trying to get at there of like, hey, maybe we need some more buy-in on like the physical recovery side. Like, hey, we already know you guys are doing jumping, diving, swimming, climbing. You're doing crazy infill distances by foot to go shoot from an elevated platform, and you're calling it a range day, and that's awesome. Where you're doing J sets to these locations, and you're chopping through the jungle, and you're doing kick-ass cool guy stuff out there in pick a country. The establishment of that bullet point, I think, will ultimately drive into above and below bullet points of like, hey, there's an expectation of all of these dudes. These guys are where we are setting the standard at. That is, the very top. You want to be top performer, top the tier. You want to do all these cool things. Above and below bullet points, your conventional ground force dudes and your specialty guys, if you're not trained to that same level and preparing to go to that environment or pursuing that career endeavor, you're probably not doing the right thing. You need to train harder. But it also provides the context, and it's now in black and white, that like, hey, when your average E5 team leader who wants to go do good things is like, hey, I want to go do swim PT today. I want to put on a dive belt and fins and just go break dudes off in the pool because I swam in high school and college. Well, it says right here, like, hey, I'm training for this. I want to go do this thing. And he's going to drown dudes, and they're going to be fine. They'll be all right. That's why you have a medic.
It'll buff out.
Literally.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Literally happened to me.
Drown proofing is a thing, and it's terrible. But it provides, now it has regulatory black and white. I can touch it, feel it, post it up, and be like, hey, I want to go do these things. So I'm going to train my guys to this level, because if I'm training, my guys should be training too. It's not a sole endeavor. As much as you want to believe it's all on the individual, it's a group effort to get to do cool things. Like, it requires support, it requires buy-in, it requires a network. But if I'm training to this and I'm training my guys to this, I'm showing my guys at the same time. And then there's no reason why you can't do this too. Look, you're doing the same PT as I am. What's stopping you? Yeah, so I think it'll breed competition. It will breed the desire to be like, oh man, I'm already doing this PT with, Staff Sergeant so-and-so or First Sergeant's out here crushing it. Well, I can do that. Yeah. Why can't I go try out for that thing? So I'm hoping that that's some of the guidance there. Additionally, it will fuel some of like the Thor 3 programs, the HPO, the MPO, the drive and desire for guys to get more. You go there and you're expected to perform at a high level, and you are rewarded with a high level of support across the enterprise. Hey, you have access to all these things, these coaches, physical therapists, dietitians. Hey, do more. Use these things that we put in place for you guys. We pay them a lot of money. Do more so that you can go and use these things that are already in place. Do more swims, do more rucks, do more runs, drop dudes off in the middle of the woods and go figure it out, get home. Like those types of things, those training events become more forefront focused versus like, well, hey, I got to go do, arms room layout because I have to lay out team whatever. I'm laying out company whatever. I don't have time to do this. Like, that's also important. It's military stuff you have to do. But hey, we're going to knock out through this really quick because we got to get to the gym. We have to go train. We have to meet this timeline. The CSM or the first sergeant or the commander put out guidance that, hey, from this time to this time, we're supposed to be training. If we're not doing anything in the company, let's get the hell out of here. Let's go to the gym. Let's go ruck, run, swim, do whatever.
And that's what I like about this is it lays it out. I don't think number 2, the Special Operations Forces occupations, I think it's there to kind of set the foundation. I don't think it's guidance to SOF. I really don't. And I think you proved that by saying, we knew what we were getting into. That's what we did. And then to your point, the above and below, it sets a tick mark right up on the wall and just lets them know if you want to progress, you can expect to do these type of things. Maybe it's a motivator. But I mean, I was going to joke around and say the difference between, SOF and ground forces normal is it's drown proofing in special forces, special operations forces. It's drown proving in conventional forces.
We'll prove to you that you can drown and be revived.
You could drown.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that's jumping off the page for me, especially when I listen to 383 talk, is intention. I think that my curiosity would be is what kind of intention are we setting, or intentionality? What purpose are we casting out there for the force? You could have dropped in on us in 1998 in 2nd Ranger Battalion, and you would have seen that we were crushing it all day, every day. Well, the purpose was we were worldwide deployable in 18 hours. How does everybody else look at that? I don't know, but is it possible that there's a lack of intention? There's a big difference between going from deploying to asking, are you deployable? It might have been easier in 2010, 11, 12, 13 because everyone was in the grinder. It was the constant rotation. The intention was clear. Get your shit together or else you're going to suffer on the battlefield. Well, we probably shouldn't be super shocked if now post-GWAT, probably not radically dissimilar from post-Vietnam, there's a little bit of a lag because it's kind of like the common question is, well, why would I do that? I mean, sure, I can go run, I can go ruck, I can do all this, but why? Like, what's the intentionality behind it? Now, I know, we all know the intention is the mandate is to be prepared so that you may close with and destroy the enemies of our country. But if that's an abstraction, that's like so far out of somebody's head, then that's a problem.
This almost goes to what you guys teach on a daily basis, though, in your applied leadership organization, which is about understanding the vision,
Right.
the mission, the strategy. This is what we're struggling with right now, I think, is that leaders have kind of lost the true north.
It's
coming out of
drift.
GWAT. Yeah,
Exactly.
So you've got the leaders that were there during GWAT that are a little bit more senior. They're wanting maybe to do some of the cool stuff, but the younger guys are not buying in. It's just not being grasped, maybe, is what I'm assuming. You can tell me, 383 if this is wrong, but, then you've got also the new guys that are coming in and going, okay, what is the next mission? What am I training my guys for?
Yeah.
What should I do?
And to Sean's point, I think that there's that gap, and this is not a radical situation just for the military, but it is not uncommon for a gap to exist between senior leadership and frontline leadership. Because, the combat arms young HUAs that I talk to, they want to get after it. They're in it. They want to get after it. There is that certain limitation. You could ask them, Blaine and I were talking about this earlier today. I remember in like 1999, we had a new PL and he said, what do you guys do for sergeant's time around here? And I said, what's sergeant's time? He said, well, that's, when we cut loose, and you guys do what you need to do with the soldiers. I said, every day is sergeant's time here, sir. What are you talking about? It's always sergeant's time. But I think that what I'm hearing in the young HUAs that I'm talking to is that there seems to be a little bit of a gap there in that initiative at the frontline leadership level. Now, I'm not trying to throw
disconnect.
Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade on that, but we also the other point of curiosity that I cannot unsee is, hey, that all sounds great. You talk to these young HUAs, give them their weapon, let them sign their weapon out, tell them you're going to road march 6 miles to the range, and everybody's got basic load to shoot. Have at it. I'm sure they'd be delighted. My question is, are you resourcing them for that? If you want them to be that lethal, are you resourcing them with the bullets, with the time on the range? Are you unleashing them so that they can actually optimize their lethality? Because it's not just about PT. It's the whole scope.
Well, and you're describing, command and control, moving pieces, waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. And then what we would love to happen, which is, the concept of mission command, disciplined initiative. Here's your end state. Here's some resources. Have at it, right? And we'd love to get back at that. And I think we've gotten to the point to where we're just kind of waiting on everybody to tell us what to do, because every time we try to step out and do something, we get our hands smacked, right?
There you go.
I mean, there's a time in the late 90s when you were in 1930.
Get the hell out of here.
I mean, there's a time when we were in, I come in the early 90s.
Shots fired.
I know, man. I need to scoot over.
The interwar period.
Yeah, the interwar period. Gunner, catapult, castle. What we look at is that, we went from doing layouts with TA-50 and everybody looked the same, and then we got a mission, and platoon leaders and platoon sergeants were allowed to build a training plan that replicated what we were about to go up against, which at the time was, the Russian horde, and
Right.
high intensity, 2-dimensional battlefield, blah, 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 blah. And the excuse that I've seen as a first sergeant, as a sergeant major is, it's so complex and it's hard to get these resources. And so, I've had commanders, they're like, every day, like you said, every day is an opportunity to train. I mean, I can have you do an op order to go clean the bathroom if I wanted to. So let's not talk about we don't have the opportunity. You're just complaining because you don't get all the cool person stuff to go with this training that you feel like you deserve to have, because we now have it in our inventory.
Yeah.
You know, I've trained with a lot less and gotten a lot more out of it in my early years. And I mean, I remember, and shout out Sergeant First Class McGuire, or Command Sergeant Major McGuire, he and our platoon leader in Germany put together a 24-point land nav course in the nether regions of Germany.
There you go.
On the back 40, man. Get on the back 40.
It don't take much to do map reading.
Sergeant Major and the commander were like, hey, we're going to be gone for 2 days. We're doing land nav. It's going to suck. You need anything from us? No? I mean, composite risk assessment, let's get after it. And it was horrible, but to this day, I remember it, right? And I actually put together my reconnaissance skills during that time and did some land nav and didn't handrail a road. And you know what I mean? Like, it was great.
But they were given the greatest resource they were given is time and empowerment.
Yeah. And we're just not empowered now.
Is that true?
That's a great question.
I'm asking.
I don't think we
383, are we?
I would say broad scope, we are not. The level of micromanagement that is seen across the force, from your standard PL all the way up to your brigade commander. I mean, we want to look at stuff. We just got hit across the force, 8% budget cut. You would think that you just took everyone's money all the way away, scrambling to find these cuts and where we can do these things. And then you look and you go, well, hold on now. You like 82nd, you jump 5 times this week. You know how many thousands of dollars that is in blade hours and fuel? Why? You jumped once. You're current. You don't need to jump again for another 90 days. Why? Well, it was forecasted. It was forecasted 10 years ago. We have to jump. We can't not jump. We forecasted it. We spent the money. We have to spend the money. You know, you can reallocate that money in the fiscal year, in the calendar year, and spend it on things like ammunition, range time, building a range complex, doing the things that are required to do to upgrade and modernize and build out these forces. The lack of willingness to release the reins and allow young NCOs to take initiative and go forth and do great things is mind-blowing. Like I go TDY, we'll go walk around, I connect with old buddies of mine and stuff like that. And I remember growing up, it was like, hey, if we were not training or getting scuffed up, or ferry packets were not out and you weren't getting just smoked until you couldn't even hardly breathe and throwing up because you didn't know this, that, or the other, or the muzzle velocity of a 9-banger. Well, God forbid your platoon sergeant saw that, you were getting it twice. They don't do that anymore. There is none of that. You go and you walk around and it's just guys sitting in the back of company areas. Hey man, why don't you guys?
Exactly what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, dude, we've been trying to do training. We can't get approval to do anything. Like, hey, guys, we want to do glass houses. Like, I'll sit out here and help you guys run some glass houses or something if you guys want to do that. Or we can just, bullshit ask questions, help do some pro dev, some NCOPD type stuff. Oh man, we can't even do that. They get really weird about it if we're doing anything other than just like sitting here.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I don't get that.
That's a common theme though, and because we're gun shy, especially as NCOs.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Guys trying to take it. Hey, I spent all weekend. I planned a ruck route. I have water points. I talked to the medics. I have the BSB is coming over. The GSB guys are going to come over. Whoever, the medics, the engineers. We got water points. We got checkpoints. We got shade and tables and chairs. I have the whole thing set up. I really want to do this. This would be awesome morale builder. Hey, this meets the requirements for the Norwegian Ruck March. We should do this. Yeah, it's a great initiative. Sit down. I don't want to talk about this right now. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you took the soul of a young NCO or a young team leader or a young captain, and that will never recover because he took initiative once and he got crushed, sometimes publicly, like, hey, we're at, command and staff or O&I, or we're doing these things, we're talking, long range training. Hey, sir, Sergeant Major, I have this great idea. Yeah, no, that's a terrible idea. We're not fucking doing that. We don't have time for it.
No, we're married to that horse blanket.
Yes.
We're married to the PowerPoint.
Yeah. And if it's not in there and it's not forecasted properly and it doesn't have the money to allocate to it, or God forbid, you try and send somebody to a school, hey, I want to take the initiative. I want to go to pick a course, a school, a class. Hey, this is in line with my career map. I did the research. I pulled the regulation. Here's all the things. This is in line with everything that I need to do to progress. I'd really like to go to school. We don't have any money. Well, what do you mean we don't have any money? We have allocated quarterly funds for TEY and NCOPD and travel and schools. Yep, no, we're spending on something else. Like, what are we spending on?
Battle
we just
staff
spent $10 million this year. Yeah, we spent $10 million this year on furniture because last year when we spent $10 million, it wasn't the right shade of burgundy. So the new battalion commander or group commander doesn't like it. So we're just going to thrash it. We're recouping all of our money. We're just going to dermo all this stuff.
God, I do not miss any of this shit.
I feel bad because as a first sergeant, I would have sergeants come up to me with amazing plans, and they know who they are. So I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and tell you that I did everything right. But I can tell you that my hands were tied. And I was blessed with commanders who would actually go stand on desks like, we are going to go do this. This is what's going to happen. We're going to train this. Any questions? And we just roll out and get it done. And lo and behold, we were motivated and we were trained and it was great. But I would have to like cut sergeants off and they bring me these delicious plans, well thought out. And I would have to look at them and go, it's not in line. It's not in line with the plan. You know what I mean?
So where do these PT standards fit into this? Is this like the opening salvo in a bigger conversation? Is this like, we're going to start with physical readiness and we're going to work from there? Because we're having a good conversation about hip pocket training and brilliance in the basics and all that stuff. And I'll go all day on that. I love it. But what is the deal with this memorandum from the SecDef about physical fitness standards? Is it addressing what we're having a conversation about right now, or are we just a little bit down a rabbit hole? I'm curious to know, like, is there some bigger intent behind this?
I have my opinion, but go ahead.
What I've seen in, at least in the articles that have been written about this, and this is coming from like Military Times and military.com, so take it, for what it is, but at least what they've tried to represent in those articles was that it's more of the SecDef and what he had said in previous podcasts prior to election, which was around, the military has gotten a little soft and away from its mission set, and so we need to regroup and make sure that we're focused on the right priorities and that we're, warrior ready and that we have a single standard. And I think what this is now, it's kind of mushrooming to something maybe bigger. It's a great point, Blaine. Has it come into something bigger? Are we now exposing maybe bigger questions like 383 is bringing up, which is beyond the PT test? We have systemic issues within our military that need to be addressed. How we think about money, how we think about where the mission is going to be, what we feel like we need to apply that dollar towards, how we measure the next war, and what we think we need to do to train towards that physically, mentally.
I'll bring in my Dan Pinionism in here and how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, you got to chop that shit up, right? Right now, we're looking at a big pile of doo-doo is what the SecDef is looking at. And so we're trying to chop it up. So he's putting it into small pieces. And I think, this is the smallest and yet one of the most important pieces, which is physical readiness. And it's easy to grab that joker and take control of it.
Well, it seems that we haven't got it right yet.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I'm just talking about from an outside perspective. I mean, you had talked about Vietnam, after Vietnam, yard sale, getting back together, disciplined, right? Yeah. Same thing after a 20-year war. I mean, the analogy is losing the load plan. You go out into battle and everything looks great, and then by the time you get back, you've got shit everywhere. And whether or not you clean it is on you, but you bring in somebody new into it, they're just in that mess.
Okay, so I'm the oldest guy here. Everybody knows that. So when I came in the Army, the PT test was actually monkey bars, run, dodge, and jump, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run. So it was more events that was based around at that time frame.
You lost us at monkey bars.
Vietnam and all of that,
the monkey bars, man.
No,
yeah, don't hit on the monkey bars.
No, they were trying to.
I did them all the time as a kid.
I just believe that we're fixing our load plan right now. I think we've gotten out of it. We're fixing the load plan, and we're putting things one piece at a time back in. And like maybe the PT is the 50 cal, so that's what we're mounting right now, getting ready to be physically fit and war ready, right?
Okay, I got a twist I want to throw on the table if you guys are ready.
Nice.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so future warfare. A lot of talk about drones. A lot of talk about autonomous vehicles, right? A lot of technology involved in the future of warfare. I think if you don't believe that, you're not paying much attention.
The Marine Corps just created a new MOS for drone operator.
Right. So here's maybe a slightly different way to think about this memorandum. Maybe trying to decide who's ground combat and who's not, can actually help us to bring more people into the force by saying, look, if you're going to be in special operations or ground combat MOS, high level of physical preparedness, high level of readiness, you have to be able to sustain operations, heavy loads on the ground. But if we can cut, some other people to the side, maybe we can have physical readiness standards that are more appropriate for people who are going to come into the armed services and do jobs that don't necessarily require a ton of physical, skill or stamina or whatever, but are still maybe going to be critical jobs to have inside the service. And so, the old SF guy in me is like, I don't want anyone to have lower physical fitness standards. But part of me also thinks, look, we have recruiting challenges. The future of warfare is going to look very different than it looks now. And maybe some of us old farts around the table just need to make peace with the fact that they're going to have to be people that wear the uniform of our country, that do important jobs, that don't necessarily need to be PT studs to do that job. And if we can't get those people in the door, that's probably a problem for us.
We're losing an asset.
So that's me maybe reading between the lines there, but is there something to that? Like, let's keep our ground combat people really focused, but let's also make room for others? I don't know. I'm just kind of offering that as an alternative viewpoint.
First off, let me clarify. I only took one PT test at the run, dodge, jump. But let me address that.
He said run, dodge, jump. Remember the
run, dodge, and jump. It really
remember?
So wait. Let me get back. So what I do want to say is that to caveat on that, in 383, I know you want to say something, but piggyback on that. We were talking about little funny things that people say.
Caveat.
Officer bingo.
A dovetail here.
You're right.
Bring out the big heavies.
Yeah. So people are now going to be asking the questions, and I don't think they're going to have enough time to address all these things that we're having on this conversation right now. Maybe they will when they give their report to the SecDef. But the question is also going to be, what about those combat service support or combat support that are actually attached to or assigned to a combat arms unit? Which standard are they going to have to uphold? And so that's where, listen, I don't have any problem with having two different sets of PT tests that differentiates those who are going to be the war fighters from those who are not. But damn it, I don't want to hear complaints from those who are the war fighters saying they have it easier over there. You made a choice. Right. Yeah. And if the decision then is if you're not a war fighter, but you're assigned to a war fighter unit, you have to uphold a different standard. So whatever it is, stop the bitch and moaning. You signed up for it or you were assigned to it. Therefore, you have to meet a different standard. Whatever we decide on, let's make that official. And 383, I know you were going to chime in, so go ahead.
Yeah. So with that train of thought, like, I think if they do similar to how they do there's a couple organizations that do, you have your combat operations guys, your guys that are, meat eaters, and then you have your combat enablers, your leaf eaters, the guys that are there that can do some of the things that are there and they're out, but hey, maybe they don't eat quite from the same food chain, but they're expected to do most all of the same things within a scope. And then you got your guys that are only drinking Mountain Dew and pounding down caffeine powder. Like that's all that those guys do, just drinking pre-workout Mountain Dew and they're sitting in a skiff somewhere. that guy, the skill set that individual has, he's recruited by the Army. He doesn't walk into a recruiting station. Most of those guys are recruited from, pick an agency, pick an organization, pick a college. They have such high scores and they are so far out there on the scale of like smart. Okay, yeah, the guy that I know for sure will never deploy, period. Doesn't matter if World War V breaks out. That guy is not leaving that seat. He is touching walls, walking around in skip spaces, and that's what he does. He is world-class smart, and he's able to do a job that I can't even fathom how to do.
And he can
I can turn it on and turn it off. Yeah, that guy knows how to do all the things inside of it. The files are inside the computer.
I got this.
That guy.
It's that guy.
Right. So that guy, well, as much as I'd like to see him come out and do good things and do the work and do all the fighting and do all the PT and all that other stuff, there's a reality there from a leadership standpoint and an understanding of like, he's not going to be able to do those things because that's not what he was hired to do. It's civilian management. Like, hey, I'm hiring you to do this thing. I don't expect you to be able to do that thing. If you've never received training on it, I can't expect you to do that. Okay, hey, we have a baseline. I need you to just get 60% in each of these events, to 65%, so we can say you passed. and then you're just going to go back and do your thing.
You know, the relevance, there's a lot of relevance in what you're saying, and it's evident in normal units right now where you'll have, you know, a command sergeant major of the unit that has a specialty person that just does this specialty thing. And I'm not saying that they're shifting standards for that individual, but they're definitely not like, how come I didn't see you at the gym today? Well, it's probably because you have him in there or her doing this specialty stuff. I mean, they focus these individuals on that task because, I mean, everybody else would be licking windows if they tried to do it. And this person's in there making it happen. I've seen in every organization I've been in, from a training room, you know, the training room guy, that's not a specific MTOD position, but we created it because we needed somebody in there to run that administrative yard sale.
I've seen the same thing inside the private sector, and you probably have as well, from those who are able to work from home, from those who have to be in the office and actually work in, you know, every day. And so we're having this same kind of conflicts, right, where we're talking about here. So you signed up for an MOS, you went into a military occupational specialty that is going to require specific things of you. Don't look over there at the guy that's doing something different, because you can go be that guy, but this is what you signed up for.
Well, I'd like to talk on this because what is surprising to me is I talked about intent before, or intention, however you want to look at it. I mean, you could have gone down the street at Fort Lewis at the time, JBLM now, and you could have seen guys that were not 18 hours worldwide deployable getting after it every morning in PT.
Yes.
What was the intention there? I would argue probably esprit de corps. I would argue, you know, rigor. I would argue that they had their priorities straight. And so where I'm thinking about this is, and I am thinking more squarely about the war fighter. So the meat eaters, as 383, you know, has talked about, right? Because they're not. They're sitting around the company area waiting to be told what to do or to be told you can go home, and they're, you know, basically looking at their phones, right? That's basically what I get from the whoas that I talk to, right?
That's a sad picture.
Well, it is a sad picture because not one of them probably signed up with that in mind.
No.
They had a different vision of what their life was going to look like when they put on, you know, the Army green, right? They had a different idea, and I think that you're right, Rob, and there's a lot of tie-in with the private sector. It's not just a military or a private sector thing. I think that there has been, you know, what could be called like a wicked learning environment, right? A wicked learning environment is one where when you do the wrong things, you still get a good result. Or if you do the right things, you get a bad result. Like that's a wicked learning environment. A kind learning environment is one where you do the right things and you get the right result. You do the wrong things, you get the wrong result, because you get to learn in that dynamic. Whether it's companies that were missing goals and yet still paying out compensation because they didn't want to lose people, whether it's the force, having guys sit around when they should actually be training, whether it's a glass house or whether it's dry fires with your weapons, or you don't have to have any resources in that other than time. What is created here is that your enablement to persist and continue progressing, because now if I take what you're saying, and I think what 383 is saying, is that these folks now have become the frontline leaders, the middle range leadership, the staff sergeants, the sergeant first classes, the lieutenants, the captains. They have come up in a wicked learning environment where they have learned the wrong lessons. And so it's great that you're casting a vision of a greater future, right? We would hope that that would inspire them to say, look, if you are a combat arms MOS, you need to be Johnny on the spot. You need to figure it out, right? You need to get to the level that you need to be so that you are the most lethal you can be, and then soft, and then specialty jobs after that. That's great. That might be casting a vision, but the truth is it might not be any different than the visions that were cast before with the ACFT, or the rogue fitness kits, or the sleds, or all the things that we have put in place. And so what we often share with leaders is that there's a very big difference between inspiration, motivation, and effort. And you can be inspired without being motivated, right? Like, I can watch Free Solo. I think Alex Honnold is incredibly inspiring. I am in no way, shape, or form motivated to go free solo or free climb El Cap, right? Why? Because the gap there is that, where inspiration paints a vision of a greater future, motivation shows people where they fit in that inspiration, in that vision of a greater future. And that seems to be the gap right now, is we don't seem to be able to help people see themselves in that vision of a agile, lethal, war-fighting force. And that's on us, because we got to change that. Because look, the job is crystal clear. It's not rocket math here. If you sign up to be an infantryman, your job is to go kick doors, close with, and destroy the enemies of our country, period. And if you're not physically fit, if you don't have command of your weapon system, shame on you. That's dereliction of duty. However, there has got to be something addressed here where there's a gap that we have missed in the middle. And that's where I think as leaders, it's our job 100%. Blaine and I talk about this all the time. It's 100% our job to cast a vision of a greater future, but motivation is a 50-50 proposition. It cannot be just, I've got to motivate my guys more, or I got to find more motivated guys, because that equation is off. If it's, I've got to find more motivated guys, that's 100% on them. If it's, I've got to motivate them more, that's 100% on me. It's got to be 50-50. You got to meet in the middle. And we talk about what that looks like is, as leaders, we can give people the role, the goals, and the rewards. Here's where you fit in to this vision of a greater future. You're an assistant gunner. You're a machine gunner. You need to be able to hump a 27.6 pound machine gun as long as I tell you to hump that thing. And you need to be able to carry 800 rounds of ammunition and the spare barrel kit and blah, 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 right? Here are the goals. Here's what we need you to hit. And here is how we will reward you. We will reward you with opportunity. We will reward you with time. We will reward you with promotion. We will reward you with a host of different things. Then we as leaders have got to help these folks find themselves in the equation by matching that up with their capabilities, their wants, and their needs. Mm-hmm. There has to be this congruence here, this bring together, right? Do you have the capability? That's where the disaggregation here of what's a combat arms, what's a non-combat arms, as Blaine said, there's people, look, I need you technically competent. I don't need you to be able to hump, a 27.6 pound machine gun. I don't need that from you. I need you to be able to put rounds on target, or to make sure that you give us the best intelligence surveillance reporting that we can possibly get. Fine. They can see themselves in that vision of a greater future. And if you can bring that together and you can satisfy their wants, their needs, you can bring their capabilities to full scope, that's when you will get the effort. And that is 100% on the individual contributor, whether you are a rifleman at the lowest level, or whether you are a mid-level leader, a sergeant first class, whatever. I think that's part of I think that's the subtext that is not maybe listed here.
I think you're right, and I think that's what Sean's got here pulled up of what he underlined.
Yeah, the one word I would use in everything that you're describing is relevance. I think having somebody feel relevant in the skin that they own creates that motivation, that esprit de corps. If you're not creating the relevance in whatever they're doing, then you're going to get a bunch of people sitting around looking at their phones. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, but fewer young men and women want to sit around and look at their phones.
I know they do.
I think this is the problem that I'm hoping we're trying to address.
Yeah.
That, we talk about this all the time. Last I checked, winning is still cool.
Absolutely.
People still want to do great things. And all you have to do is just look at like the podcasts, the internet, the handles that people are following right now. There are plenty of young men and young women right now that want to be physically fit.
Yeah.
That want to get in the gym and get jacked. That want to make a lot of money. Like, it's coming back. Young people are starting to realize we got fed a bill of goods.
That's right.
And I am not doing this anymore. They don't necessarily have the tools or the skills because we failed them, right? We tied their shoes for them. We did everything for them, and they do not have the tools. I have a 19-year-old son, so I feel like I can attest to this. Kid's getting motivated. The kid is getting in the gym. He's going to college. He wants to do better, and he does not know, some of the time at least, how to do it or how his mindset should be. And so you gravitate toward these other people on the internet that can help you to get motivated. Some of them are not the best people necessarily. But I say all that just to say this. You can still get in somebody's face and challenge them to be a better version of themselves.
Yep.
Right.
And if we're not doing that in the United States military, I don't know where we can do that. People still will respond to that. And I think we got to a place where we felt like we can't push too hard or they'll cry, or we can't push too hard or they'll quit. And we see this even in corporate America right now. We're dealing with this with some of our clients. We need to get in their face and challenge them right now, but we're afraid that some of them are going to bounce. They're going to walk away. Yep. And so we feel like we're at a bit of a, with a bit of a paradox.
We're stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, that would be my very broad and too general advice, is to say, when you find an opportunity to get in somebody's face and challenge them to be a better version of themselves, don't miss that opportunity to do that. Because the young men and women out there that are in these units, they don't want to be sitting around at the back of the company waiting on the word. And so how do we get, the buck sergeants and lieutenants the permission they need to get this going? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe PT is part of the solution. Maybe that's what we need to be doing is, hey, it's 3:15 in the afternoon. Let's get out and start doing squats and sprints, because we can do that for free, and we know we need to. Like, maybe that's where we're going here.
Before we close this thing out, I do want to, Sean, you to read this piece of it of what the SecDev did say, but also I want 383 to chime in on what you just said, Blaine. And
I want him to chime in on what I'm about to read, because I'm very very curious. So we're lobbing this softball at you right after.
Yeah, let me. I just want to close, since Robbie just mentioned, I want to close a thought on this. As I know, because Blaine and I talk about this often. That's not to say that like it's not a bag on Gen Z, right? Like, they're lazy, they don't know how to talk to people, they're addicted to their phones, blah blah blah. Not at all. The issue is that they have largely experienced an enablement culture. They've gone to school where they didn't have to turn in any of their homework assignments until the last 2 weeks of the semester and still get 100% full scores. They've grown up in an environment where they have been taught to perform to hit the numbers on the test, not to learn how to think. They have been brought up in an environment where, and I think a lot of it has to do with a course correction. You think about Gen X, right? Like, nobody knew where we were, what the hell we were doing. We were completely unsupervised generation. So what did the Gen X generation, what did we do? We kind of helicoptered our kids, right? And we didn't do it because of any nefarious reasons. We did it because I think we were trying to, in many ways, cover a gap. And what we have done with this culture of, do you feel nervous in speaking to somebody? Well, let me organize a play date for you, is that we have robbed them of the ability to have life lessons in low stakes environments. And so now when they come crashing up against the rocks of reality in high stakes environments, such as the United States Army, what do we expect? And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to do some recalibration in a very low cost manner. We've got all the equipment out there, and it's not a knock on them. It's an opportunity, because I think they're hungry. They want it. We want them. We're responsible for our part of it. We can be responsible for helping to mentor them up into what right looks like.
Then hopefully the commands, on that note, hopefully the commands then integrate them as part of this decision process, because I think they could probably provide some great input.
Absolutely. 50-50.
Yep.
Yeah. 383. I know you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, let me hit up this statement first.
Let me do the sex neutral talk real fast. So, sex neutral standards, all entry level and sustained physical fitness requirements within combat arms positions must be sex neutral, based solely on the operational demands of the occupation and the readiness needed to confront any adversary. In establishing those standards, the secretaries of the military departments, and the SecDef actually underlined this with his pen, may not establish standards that would result in any existing service member being held to a lower standard. There's an asterisk next to that. So at the bottom, he wrote, no existing standard will be lowered in this process. I'm not going to go over all the other ones. It's implementation of the plan. 383, what are your thoughts?
So, a couple thoughts on the 50-50 thing, like you're talking about. It is 100% you have to meet in the middle. There is no left or right. There is no, hey, I can take 90, you take 10. It is a 50-50 thing. And the generation of leadership that we're seeing at the mid levels right now, a lot of them were brought up in that weird phase and period where, like, they watched all their senior leaders get crushed for having ideas or for having tattoos or for being this or being that, and watch them all just be like, yeah, you know what? To hell with this job. I'm done. I'm out of retirement. I'm getting out. So they had a massive vacuum, a black hole of leadership and accountability and like what right looks like. A lot of those guys are still actively laying the road as they're driving, and they're going 100 miles an hour. They don't know what they don't know. So some of that onus, like you said, it is 50-50. Like command teams from division down to the platoon level, like command teams to buy in and go like, hey, we're having a sit down today and we're tops off. We're going to have a conversation like adults. What do you want to learn? What do you want to know? What don't you know? Why don't you know it? How do I get you to yes? Having that conversation is a hard, uncomfortable, not easy conversation to have because it forces that leader to go, man, I thought I was doing like really good and I thought I was giving all these guys all the things. And maybe you were trying and you had the best intent at heart and you were doing the things that you thought were right. And that was what you were brought up on, and how it looked to you was like, oh, hey, like I'm going to enable these guys. I'm going to go in and like pull weapons out and get them ready for these guys. Like maybe that's what you thought right looked like, but you're robbing these young guys of the opportunity to fail fast, fail first, get it knocked out of the way. Like the only way you learn is making those hard life choices. And it's easier to watch guys fail in garrison where, hey, we can correct it. We can do, training event, whatever. But we're robbing these guys of these opportunities. Everything is so scripted. Everything is by the book. Everything is black and white. Hey, you enter the door. You will go left. You will go right. You will go straight. You will clear this sector, nothing but this sector. It becomes a dance more than it becomes like a training event where you can mess up, learn from your mistakes, go, hey guys, come here real quick. Hey, so I hooked right, there was a couch right there and I didn't know about it. And I went ass over tea kettle over that couch and left a whole section of that house uncleared. Thank God somebody was right behind me coming in and he picked up my sector, but I learned this, and this. Hey, let's run it again. Let's reset. Let's index this. We're going to retalk. We're going to get back after it. We're not affording people the opportunity to do that. So forcing that conversation to be had, going as a first sergeant, talking to platoon sergeants, going, hey guys, what the damn hell are we what are we teaching these guys right now? Okay. Hey, squad leaders, come here. Platoon sergeants, get out of here. Hey, what are you guys teaching and what do you guys want to learn? What do you guys want to do? Awesome. Hey, team leaders, come here. We're going to have a conversation. All right. So these guys are saying that this is what they're teaching. Is this what they're teaching you guys? Be honest with me. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it like adults. Hey, if you're not getting what you need, you got to tell me. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. If you don't communicate with me and I don't communicate equally back with you on the commander's vision or the medals or the pedals or the desired end state, now we're just out here running drills to run drills with no desired end state in sight. We're wasting our time. This is of value to no one. Yeah. What are we doing?
I mean, you get a lot of people
having those conversations.
You have a lot of people that just check the training block,
Right. And that leads back into kind of what we were talking about earlier with like the physical fitness standards. Like, what is the point of this? How does this drive forward? And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a very small piece of a giant herd that we are being forced to eat and watching to kind of crumble around us. But physical readiness, physical standards lead to operational readiness. If I'm physically fit, I can be operationally ready. Once I'm operationally ready, I can start operationally training. Once I've mastered that operational training, now I can start doing the harder things. I'm crawl, walk, run, officerisms, do sort of squeeze, all the things, glide path, waterfall. But if we don't start at the very, very basic, we're going to get all of them.
Yeah.
But if we don't start at the very basics and have input, like you want to know who's one of the greatest subject matter experts is? That brand new guy who just shipped to you, that just came from a TRADOC unit, he's coming out of basic training. Hey, you come here. What in the hell are they teaching you guys up there? I want to know everything that you're learning. Oh, I didn't know that they were teaching that. I'm gonna have to go do some reading. I'm gonna have to go do some educating. Hey, you grab those 6 other dudes that just got here. Yeah, I'm not stuffing you guys up. Come here. I want to. What did you guys learn at basic training or advanced training? Or hey, you just came through the program. What are they teaching you guys? Oh shit, I didn't even know that we were teaching that. I thought that was like an advanced thing. They're teaching you guys that shit. Now, man, I didn't learn that until I was like in the unit for 5 or 6 years. That's pretty cool. Hey, we gotta polish this up. Hey, leaders, come here. We gotta sit down and go over this long range training calendar and figure out what's going on so we can brief these guys on what we're doing and why we're doing it so that they're not just sitting in the back of the company, twiddling their thumbs, scrolling on Twitter, doing whatever they're doing. Hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to do glass houses. These glass houses are going to immediately feed into the next week's drill. We're going out, we're actually doing dry fire blanks, UTMs live in the shoot house because you guys got to know what right looks like. Now I can, down to the micro level, I can watch your feet. I can watch where your PEC 15 laser is pointing, where your LA5 is hitting. I can see what you are seeing. I can walk behind you in this glass house and show you, hey, these are your sectors. Why are you looking over here? That's not right. What are you doing? You're looking at the center of the room. You didn't clear that corner.
Yeah.
All right, recock, run it again. We're going to do it this way. But that involves leadership getting off their butt, doing the things that they need to do. That involves leadership admitting, hey, maybe I don't know everything that I thought that I knew. And that's okay. Because if I don't know and my guys don't know, then we're both wrong. I owe them the responsibility to go get trained and understand and talk to subject matter experts and come back and go, hey, I just got this cool class. We're going to do some train the trainer. I'm going to teach you guys. And then I want to watch you guys teach some you guys. And then we're going to have that subject matter expert. He's going to come in and he's going to observe us. We're all going to make sure we're on the same sheet of music so we know what we're doing.
Yeah. So everything that you're talking about is, you know, that squad concept. Hey, so what we're going to do right now is just, and for time, is we're going to get everybody's final thoughts. You want to start with 383?
Yeah, I'll kick it off, and then we'll just kind of go around on 383. You'll finish up because it'll be easier to do the room than I think it'll. So what I would say is, I think everything that I've heard so far, and you guys are probably going to end up echoing this, is going to be that we don't know what the problem is yet. And I think the problem is we have bigger issues here outside of a PT test, but we're focusing on a standard and a PT test as if that's the thing that we're trying to address. Because it's so many times during this entire conversation, we got off track. We didn't get on track on a standard of a PT test. We went on standards of everything else, and the issues that are surrounding us within the military since the war, that now in a garrison environment, we're trying to figure out what's the next war, what's the next mission set, how do we prepare for it, what are going to be the physical standards, and I think personally that's our issue. And I don't honestly know if they can figure this out quickly enough. And I'll pass it to you now, Sean.
And one thing that we didn't talk about is this guidance is coming from a person who has a vision, probably has some advisors, but at the end of the day, it's a person who has a vision for what he thinks is going to be right for the military and what that starting point looks like. So as much digging around as we're trying to do and figure out what the purpose of this is, it could be just as simple as his vision through his aperture and going, ICPT is a fundamental problem that we have across all services. That's what I'm going to attack first. And then the disclaimer is, and I'll pass it on to you, is that as we sit here and we talk about a lot of these failures and not doing things right, at the end of the day, we are doing some things right. We're just trying to refine the things that we're doing so we can be more right. So we can get back to a place to where we thought we needed to be. And, you know, at the end of the day, we do have the strongest military in the world. I'm proud of having served with it. And I think we can always do better. I think that's where we're at right now, is just trying to find better.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to say also, thanks for having us back, man. This has been fun.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you guys are back.
Yeah. And
super fun.
And here's what I'll say maybe to wrap things up is that I think PT, physical fitness, is the baseline for being your best in life almost always. And that's especially true as a team. And my experience as a young soldier, a young leader at Fort Hood, Texas, 2001, 2, 3, if you looked across that entire base, at 6:30 in the morning, every single Bubba on that giant installation was doing PT, with very, very few exceptions, regardless of MOS, regardless of unit. There were tens of thousands of people on that installation doing PT at 6:30 every single morning. And why? Physical fitness is good for you. Esprit de corps is good for the unit. Shared sweat, shared hardship is good for bringing people together. And so I don't really know what the, impetus of this memo is. I don't know where it will lead. What I do know for sure is that if you do more PT and you do it together, it will improve the standards of the unit. You are much more likely to do that hip pocket training at the end of the day. You are much more likely to go pull some deadlifts at the gym when you have a little extra time. You're much more likely to feel close to your brothers and sisters to your right and to your left if you're doing more PT. It costs basically nothing. It requires very little skill and training to do the fundamentals. And there's no reason that should not go back to being the standard across the military. If I were to drive on any Army installation, at least 6 months from now, I would hope that I would see every single person out there at 6:30 in the morning doing PT. I think if we could agree that we start there, I think we can get to some of these other places that we're trying to go without overcomplicating it too much. So, and by the way, I just want to drop this in there. I didn't say the word CrossFit one single time in this whole.
I'm shocked.
I'm really proud of myself.
But I'm a little disappointed.
His headphones won't.
I'm gonna drop it right now because look, people have figured this stuff out. Like, it is not that hard to figure out what the functional patterns are for human body and what the basic things we need to do to train people across the 3 energy systems. Do you need to go far? Yes. Do you need to go hard for a medium amount of time? Yes. Do you need to be really strong for short amounts of time? Yes. Okay, go fix yourself. That's what I would say.
He's talking.
It's all on the internet and it's all there for free.
Oxidative, glycolytic.
Look at you.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry. I did.
And create
The CrossFit coach was coming.
I blacked out. I blacked out. I don't even know what happened.
Go ahead, Brand.
Well, I'll just say a couple things. You read that last statement, and I didn't want us to completely fly over that. So what I would suggest is, Lisa Jaster, who was one of the first females who graduated Ranger School, wrote a book called Delete the Adjective, i.e.
Shout out, Lisa.
Shout out, Lisa. She's a female Ranger. No, she's a Ranger, right? So there you have it. The adjective is deleted. The standard is the standard. Sounds wonderful. So that's all I'll say about that. Drive on with that. If you can do the job, rock and roll. The last thing that I will say is that we fundamentally believe that nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to suck today. And I don't think anybody walks into their unit and says, I want to be a shitty soldier today. I want to be substandard. I want to be subpar. I don't want to be able to do the job that I signed up to do. I believe that we have legion of hard chargers waiting to be unleashed right now. They signed up for the job. They want the job. Give them the chance to do the job. Nobody wants to suck ever. And so in conjunction with that, that also means that we have got to create an environment where they can screw up and we will pick them up. That is one of the critical aspects of empowering people that gets missed often. We give them the guidance, and we have the guidance from the SecDef right now. We give them the resources. I would argue that we probably have the resources to do this with all the equipment that we have just illustrated that we have out there. You got to give them the support. Give them the support to say, hey, go get after it out there. And you know what? If you fuck it up, we're going to pick you up and we're going to show you a different way to do it. Now try it again. Go do that, those glass houses. Go do your tape drills. And if you screw it up, we're going to show you how to do it again. Give them the chance to screw it up so that we can finally give them the life lessons that they have predominantly been robbed of for the last 10 to 15 years in this cultural milieu that we have created. And we will find exactly what we were looking for when they raised their right hand, which is a whole force of skull crushers who are ready to close with and destroy the enemies of our country.
383, it's your turn.
Yeah, I think everybody has offered incredible insight and has hit some great points. It's easy to admire the problem and it's easy to get sidetracked. I mean, we started on one thing and we went through a madrid of things. I think that were very important and speak volume to the issue that we're ultimately trying to get to. We've admired it. Now we got to self the admiration and go, all right, how do we fix it? I think having these conversations and talking, getting guys that have experience and exposure to it, and ultimately taking all the knowledge that we all have, prior service, dude still in service, senior, junior, you bring everybody together, you put it in a melting pot, and you go, all right, hey, we've got some ideas, let's go try them. Holding a standard is the standard is the minimum. I think if we train to standard, that is great. We train to standard, not the time. So enforcing that, like, hey, it is okay to go out and mess up, and we pick them back up, we dust them off, maybe get smoked a little bit, and hey, that was wrong, this is why it was wrong, I'm going to show you why it was wrong. But not just admiring the problem and talking about the what if and could be and have been and once was, and going, hey man, it was like this when I was a young guy. I don't want to see it like that anymore. Let's figure out a way to get to yes now. Let's drive forward. Let's enable these young folks to do the things that they ultimately signed up to do. And I think from that, if we start empowering some of these young guys to take the initiative and give them the time and the space and the support that they need, I think the force at large would be amazed at the capability and the talent that resides within our ranks right now. That is like you said, it's just waiting to be cut loose. We've got a real tight lid on this thing, and we ratchet strapped it down, and we're holding on, and like, why not? Not quite yet. We're not quite ready. I think there's no better time than now. Cut them loose. Let them learn. Let them fail. Let them fail fast. And then we start training. We build that physical readiness. We build that operational readiness. We start training folks. We start getting folks into the schools that they need to go to. We start empowering young leaders to be leaders. We can't hold their hand forever. As much as we want to see them succeed and willing to help them along the way, sometimes you got to let that 19-year-old kid just eat it hard. And you pull them into the company often and they go, hey, man, you really biffed that thing up. But, hey, I appreciate the fact you got back up and you continued to try. And, hey, here's some life lessons that I learned along the way, some of the stuff that I got snagged up as a young guy. It's not the answer. It's a answer. Take it for what it's worth. If it can help you along the way, awesome. If there's one piece of this that you take and go, man, I'm going to try that next time. But until we start empowering and enabling and building and allowing folks to do the things that they signed up to do, I think we will be stuck admiring more of the problem than we will be admiring the solutions and executing said solutions, or at least trying said solutions. We are part of the greatest fighting force that the world has ever seen. I think we have the most patriotic, the most empowered, the most supportive organizations that we've ever had. We just have to allow these folks to do the things that they signed up to do and just release the reins a little bit. Give them enough rope that they can go and do the things that they need to do. Bring them in, teach them a little more, give them some more rope, and just continue that trend. The only way you're going to learn is if you go and do it. I can have you study something until you're blue in the face and you can spit it out verbatim. That's great. Now show me you understand it.
Yep.
If you can't show me you understand it, I owe you more training. I owe you more opportunities. I owe you more time.
Free the kids. Let them out. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. Free them. Give violence a chance. Let these guys get violent out there on the training ranges. Let them get after it. And once we start doing that, I think the shift that we are all desiring to see and we want to see, and hey, we want to see these guys go do great things, and we want to see promoted faster and more badges and more awards and more tabs and more quals and all of us combined, I think it'll come. But we just got to be willing to allow them to go forth and do great things. And whether that's, hey, we do PT at 0630, or hey, we do PT at from 13 to 1500 every day, or we standardize the thing and we empower these H2F programs that we've got and the coaches and the mentors and all that other stuff. I think we have the answers. They're there. We just got to sit down and put the puzzle pieces together and go, oh, there it is. All right, now let's move out. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk. This was phenomenal. I got a lot of information from you guys that I'm going to sit and mull over and try and do some more writing stuff with. But this is how these conversations go, so that we can drive change, and hopefully somebody listening to this will go, and that was a great point so-and-so had, and I'm gonna try and implement that. And from that, the ripple effect happens, and the things that we want to see happen, and somebody takes it and does far more than I will ever be able to do with it. And then we see success at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, considering that around the room here, between the five of us, we probably have close to 80 years of military service. You'd hope that at least somebody takes some of the information that we're sharing and applies it. Not just me, Sean.
He's got 80 years.
But I'd like to thank, on behalf of Sean, I'll speak for him. Blaine, thanks so much for coming in, and Brandon, for you guys and your wisdom and stopping by in the studio. And Task Force 383, thank you for joining us online. Via the cell phone and everything. This is one of the first times we've done that in a long time. So it's really good to have your input as an active duty member and sharing your wisdom as well, brother. Appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it a bunch.
Yep.
All right, man.
All right.
Till next time.
Peace.
Give violence a chance.
Unleash the hounds.